All
Are
right.
we? Are you? Okay.
Yep. And I started recording, and I'm going to start admitting people. So if we want to kind of, keep on our toes. So Don and Sue Elliott are joining us. Joy Cubitt is joining us.
So,
And I'm
Jean,
going to
um,
start muting.
I'm wondering if at the end, if we really need to show everybody's video in its entirety, as opposed to just referring people to the website.
That's up to you, I guess, Rick.
We could play it by ear and see how, how people, if people are dropping out. We could ask them if they want that, or I think it'd be easier for them to pick and choose and go on the website.
It broadcasts better directly through the website. So I think that's a better idea.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Jean, are you going to mute everybody when we start?
Can you do that, Lindsay?
I'm doing it. All right,
Okay.
everybody. Welcome. We're just ramping up, and we are going to thank you now. Don't take it personally.
We'll be starting soon. We're going to let people join in. That I should be doing. Can you think of anything, Lindsay, right now?
Yeah, I just see you have 2 host buttons open, so I'm just going to ask.
I can't close the Center for the Arts one.
Okay.
Because it is the main host, and that doesn't have my video, so I'm on my laptop.
All
and
right.
It's right here beside me.
I'm just going to unmute that one too, okay?
So unmute me, but keep the other one muted, right?
Okay, which one is the host and which one's the co-host?
The host is the logo.
Okay, got it.
I have my audio off.
Got it.
Okay, so I'm glad some people have joined us early. It's nice to see new faces and old faces. Let me see, I think we are waiting for a few more people, including a couple of artists, I believe. Oh, here's Jim. I knew he'd be here. Well, I would like you to unmute your microphone. I'm going to stay muted now. Okay. So I guess while we're waiting here, Rick and I have been talking about some upcoming art exhibits beyond this show, which is a very great and exciting show to have up. But the November show will also be in this format, and we're planning now for 2021. So if you have any suggestions on what you'd like to see for next year, or different formats, please speak with Rick about that, because he's lining up people for 2021. And there may be some new opportunities as far as having the exhibits put online, having the art shows put online for members and non-members. So we'll keep you posted on that. And let me see. We have just a minute to go. Okay. Okay, a couple more people joining us. It's always tricky on Zoom events. I don't know if you have noticed that if events are streaming live or if they're on Zoom, people don't always click on ahead of time. So it's hard to start the event right away. And if we were in a large auditorium, we would be looking at people strolling in at the last minute, and they'd all be finding their seats. And we would be saying, okay, let's let these last few people come in. So we are trying to do that online here, but it's a little different. I'm sure you've all had those experiences. It's a little Zoom and YouTube and our CFA channel are all new to us this year, so we're experiencing these events in many different ways and learning a lot as we do them. So we'll just wait a couple more minutes. I'm thinking, are all the artists here? I believe they are. If you are there, if you're an artist, could you put your video on so that we could see you? It would be nice to see your beautiful faces.
So I'm here, this is Peter.
You are there. Peter, do you have your video on? Because all I can see is a P.
Um,
I know you're probably in your
There.
We can
studio.
see you.
Oh, much nicer. Okay. And Tatiana, are you
oh,
there?
but I have a,
Tatiana only has audio. She won't be able to be seen.
Oh. Okay. Well, we have a nice, beautiful picture for a painting there. We can enjoy. We'll let a few more people come in. Oh, yeah. Peter goes and comes.
yeah, I have a background picture I'm trying to get rid of.
I like it. Is that yours, Peter?
It is. I can, but it does this weird thing with your head, makes your head look like,
Oh, it's
we can leave it.
vertical.
but I wanted
Yeah.
to possibly show some stuff, so
Okay.
ignore me for the time being. Let me just stop that.
So Tatiana is asking to be unmuted.
Lindsay, can you do that? Oh, I see.
It says here, Tatiana, that you're not muted.
Go ahead, Tatiana.
Can you speak, Tatiana? Does it show muting? It could be an issue with your audio, Tatiana.
Yeah.
Which is it happens. If that's the case, Rick, we may show Tatiana's video
Yeah.
briefly and then move on to another artist if we don't have audio from Tatiana.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, well, it's just about 6:05, so let me just welcome you all. Thank you so much for coming to another virtual First Friday. We would love to gather in real time live at all of these wonderful micro galleries. As you know, they are at Bar Harbor Bank and Trust on Main Street, at Blue Loon Bakery, also on Main Street, Tatewell Gallery, which is in the old Colonial Plaza on Newport Road, and the New London Inn, which is on Main Street as well. They're all great galleries and they have wonderful exhibits that are up. You can stop in anytime at your convenience and see the artwork live, and we hope that you will do that and spread the word. A lot of people don't realize that these businesses and galleries are open. We've been doing a lot of takeout and pickup. So we need to spread the word that these are open. They are beautiful exhibits with beautiful artwork, and we hope that you'll take advantage at your convenience to stop by. But tonight is our opening reception, and we thank you for being with us. We hope that we invite you to go grab your favorite beverage and pretend that we're all together in a gallery viewing the art and speaking. We have 5 amazing artists with us today. Tatiana Yanovskaya-Sink, who is an oil painter, has an exhibit at the New London Inn. Gwen Fuller, who has a beautiful exhibit at Blue Loon Bakery. Peter Anderson, contemporary artist, who is at Bar Harbor Bank and Trust. And Paula Menard, I'm always afraid I'm going to pronounce that name incorrectly, and Abby McAmer, who have some very interesting and wonderful art at Tatewell Gallery. I do hope before we go on with the program, I just want to invite you to tune in for our other First Fridays. In October, the first Friday of the month, we have a special program with Northern Stage Theater and the bold assistant artistic director, Chase, and a special guest from the Necessary Tiny Theater that they were producing this year. And then in November, another new exhibit with new artists. And then in December, we are pleased to bring Highlights of the Messiah, an absolutely breathtaking show put on by the Kearsarge Conservatory of Performing Arts, collaborating with the Center for the Arts. It's dance music, readings, visual art. It's just absolutely stunning. So we hope that you'll be able to join us for those other First Fridays. So now, without further ado, is there anything going on there? I'm going to pass it on to Rick. Just before that, you are all muted for the benefit of your listening pleasure. Usually the videos and the programs are sent better for your audio pleasure if we're all muted. But you will have an opportunity to speak with the artists right after this short preview of the videos that we're going to show. And Rick, I'll pass it on to you. Rick Stockwell is our the coordinator of the micro galleries and the chair of the Visual Arts Guild at the Center for the Arts. Rick?
Hi. So we've gone to great lengths to make this virtual First Friday opening. We have on our website a film and slideshow of every show, showing every piece there narrated by the artists. We have a great variety of artists, and we will start by showing you the first minute or so of their video, which is available on their website, and you can view that at your leisure after this virtual opening. Hopefully we'll pique your interest and tell you enough about the artists and show you enough about their work so that you will want to go and see that. All the shows are open to the public as well, so that they can be viewed in person, but we also wanted to have a glimpse online. So what we'll do tonight is we'll introduce each artist one at a time, show the first minute or so of their video filmed at the micro gallery where they're participating, and then we'll spend a couple minutes with each artist to do question and answers, and the artists will explain a little bit about their work and their style. Each one has a totally different and interesting approach to art, so I think you'll find that interesting, and hopefully we'll want to go on the website and learn more about them. So our first artist is Tatiana. She's at the New London Inn, and I'm gonna go to share screen now, where I will show her yep, here we are.
Hi, my name is Tatiana Yanovskaya. I am an artist who paints between 35 and 40 years. I was born in Ukraine. I have several degrees, engineering and art degrees. And when I immigrated to the United States, I quit my full-time job as a paralegal at a law firm and decided that I have to take a chance to paint as a full-time artist. And I studied for a long time with the best artists of the United States. I learned a lot. I incorporate knowledge which I obtained in Ukraine. And I can say about myself that I'm an artist who is an advocate for painting from life, because nothing like painting from life could reflect your own perception as an artist and knowledge about the atmospheric ambient you paint in. Nothing can substitute like painting versus from printed copy or camera or even computer screen, which is very popular right now. Because everybody can render, everybody can use the photo camera, and camera use particular settings. So if you are in a live setting situation and you go switch to camera, painted from camera or printer, it's not going to be the same. So it's a specific, people who paint from life, they understand what I'm saying. So I would like to demonstrate you to show my work that I'm primarily, mostly 85, 90% I paint from life. And I would like to assist you with showing painting in the show, which one related to which subject and how it was painted, maybe where it was painted, so maybe a little tour. For instance, this painting, this is plein air painting. I painted at Claremont, New Hampshire, a town I love very much. It's a public garden. And I was very inspired by, of course, sunflowers. It's a flower of my country, native country. And here, in the United States, a lot of people love sunflowers. And the light was, it was a hot day, beautiful hot day. And those ambience was just so hot. And I conveyed with the colors, as I said, nothing like painting from life. I can zoom in to show you the details that you can see, that hot reflection from the bottom of inside the sunflower. The next one, for instance, this is roses, Fels roses, painted at the Fels plein air artist event, which we have every year. And I painted as from start to finish. That was, I don't know, probably about 2.5, 3 hours. And I was just driven because the roses, the best rose in Fels there. So this is my favorite, one of my favorite roses painting, and I treasure it. And however, you can preview it coming here, and you're welcome to do it. And some.
So can you hear me? Jean,
Yes.
raise your hand. Yeah. So we're just going to give you a glimpse into the video. Tatiana has a great variety of oils from still life flower arrangements to landscapes to people to it's really a great show, and it works well at the end. I'm not sure if her audio is working for questions and answers, so let me go back to Tatiana. Can you hear us? I think we're going to have to wait and see if she can come on in a little bit. But I strongly encourage you to see her show at the end. Our next artist is, let me go there again. Bear with me. Next artist is Gwen Fuller at the Blue Loon Bakery.
Hi, my name is Gwen Fuller. I'm an artist from New England. These two paintings are both oils and were done actually from photos that I took, but changed slightly in Vermont during the winter. This painting was also in Vermont, and it was just outside of Woodstock. And I was really captured by the snow and the darkness of the stream that was flowing through this area. I really love capturing scenes that I think will excite people like they excited me. This scene is from Monhegan, looking towards the island of Mannan. And it's one of my favorite places to paint. This is also an oil painting. And this one too is from Monhegan, and I just really love the buildings and the rocks and the trees. And it's also an oil, but it's on paper, so that's why it's framed under glass. This is a watercolor of the backside of the livery in Sunapee. I do love to do watercolors as well. and try to do them, as many of them as I do oils. Again, I took a photo while I was there, but I usually change the photos a good amount while I'm painting and make the composition a little bit better. This is an oil on paper of some trees. I was doing some studies of trees, and these are just a series of trees that I had seen and put together to create a composition.
So as you can see, Gwen has a variety of different materials she uses. And let's open it up to Gwen for some questions and answers. Can we unmute Gwen? I'm looking to see.
Gwen is under Rob, iPad Rob. She has a different title under there. She's really not iPad Rob. She's really Gwen Fuller.
So I'm trying to unmute her, but.
Lindsay, can you unmute? Yes. All right, let me try on another. Thank you all for being so patient with this. It's not easy switching gears from live to online, and we're all trying to unmute. Maybe we should unmute all. Would that be good?
Yeah.
Okay, let's see here. Let's get participants. Okay, I've unmuted all from my side. We're also working from 3 different offices to do this, so it's a little complicated.
Hey, Gwen, there should be a notification if you just move around your mouse that says ask to unmute. So I've sent it a few times. I can only mute you. I can't unmute you.
Unmute.
There she is.
Here we are. Hi, Gwen. How are you?
Hi, I'm
Nice
great.
to hear your voice.
So Gwen, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself as an artist and your style, what you like to do, and so on.
All right. Well, I'm a very traditional landscape painter, actually. I work, as you saw from the video, both in oils and watercolor. And my real goal is to invite the viewer to come into the painting and feel what I felt when I saw that scene, and see if they can be as inspired by that as I was. Sometimes it's a matter of the way the light creates patterns on the landscape. Sometimes it's how it sets a mood. And sometimes it's the way that man-made structures just kind of seem to fit right into the landscape that really captures me and makes me want to paint that. I begin, my method of painting is probably pretty traditional too. I begin with just some very, very small sketches, which are called notans, all black and white, just making sure that I have a good composition, working with values after that in black and white and grays. And then when I have, and I use as my reference either plein air sketches that I have done or photos that I've taken, but I don't copy a photo. I take bits and pieces and put them together to create an interesting composition. And then I figure out the size and ratio that I want to do this painting and create a sketch in that size and transfer it eventually onto either canvas or paper, depending on the medium that I'm going to use. So once I've got that sketch transferred, the photo goes away if I'm using a photo. The sketch goes away. because now I have my composition and I just begin to paint. And I don't need to see the colors or the light because I can figure out how to do that to make it the most interesting painting that I can in this way. So it's a real privilege and a pleasure for me to share my art with you. I'm glad you've joined this group to come and see the art today. And I hope that you will take the time to look at the videos. And I especially hope you'll go to the Blue Loon Gallery and take a look in person at the artwork hanging there. So I'm available for any questions if you have any.
So if you have a question, raise your hand and we will unmute you. Emily, you're unmuted, so go ahead.
Yeah. So I was, oh, sorry. So I was wondering, what you talked about the fact that you took a picture and then you changed elements around in there. And I'm wondering how you were able to figure out the light when you've got, sunlight coming in at a slant and you've suddenly either taken away a tree or put in a tree or whatever it is that you do to alter the original scene to make it a more interesting composition. How do you figure that out?
Well, when you have your sketch and you know where your light source is coming from, it's easy to figure out where the shadows are going to be, on which side of the building, on where the tree is casting a shadow or where anything else is casting a shadow.
Just trees are complicated and they have different branching into.
They can, but when I'm out, when you're out in nature, if you just really look when you're out there, when you see a tree and you see a shadow and you study how it changes as it gets further away from the trunk, for instance. When it's close to the trunk, it's very dark. As it gets away, it fades out, the edges get blurry. I mean, you learn to really see those things and incorporate those things into your painting.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for asking.
Okay, so now we're going to Pam has a question. We need to, can you unmute yourself, Pam, or should we?
So
Yeah, I just was curious, what is it, something in the subject, or what makes you choose the medium, since you work in both?
I don't know. It's just something that says this should be an oil or this should be a watercolor. It's a hard thing to answer. It just depends at the time and how I feel about it. Yeah.
Any other questions? Jean?
Hi, Gwen.
Hi.
On that note, they are very, very different mediums to work with.
They
Oils
are.
and colors are completely different. So
They are.
how is it that you were able to switch from one to the other? Did you get started doing one first and then move to, in your career so that you are accomplished at both? Or
I studied oils way back, way in school, and then and kept with that for a while. But then I got into watercolor for a long time, and I just recently, not recently, but in the past 10 years, went back to oils. So it's been a while that I really worked in watercolor a long time. But you're right, they're totally different. The approach is totally different. In one you work from dark to light, and the other you work from light to dark, and the way the paint works is very different. So yes, but that's interesting for me. It's wonderful to switch from one to the other. I really enjoy that. Makes me think.
bet it does.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Gwen. They're really
You're welcome.
beautiful. So the
Thank
Blue
you.
Loon is closed Monday and Tuesday, but I'm pretty sure it's open all the other days of the week. Abby was explaining to me how she does her, it kind of looks like stained glass without the leaded, but there's a lot of work that goes into it. So I'd love to hear, Abby, from you about your process. Let me start by showing the beginning of your video.
Hello, my name is Abby Mockimer. I'm a mosaic artist using stained glass and other pieces of glass and natural things. I've worked in traditional stained glass using copper foil and lead. However, I felt that it limited my artistic ability and so my artistic freedom. So I've moved to eliminating the metals and using much more light in all of my pieces. So I now use glass, creek rocks, chunks of glass, whatever I can find to put in these colorful, whimsical pieces of fish, villages, lots of florals, and geometric designs. So let's take a look. In the top, you'll see a piece in a repurposed window frame. I like to do a lot of repurposing and using the old wooden frames. I try to add as much color as I can, and you'll see some blocks of glass at the bottom to enhance the colors within the picture, and that piece is called Pedaling. The one below, I've used a special saw to cut some of the flowers. All other pieces are hand cut that you see with the flat glass, the stained glass, and that is in a cherry frame. Pennsylvania cherry is a special product in the area that I live in, and that's Pennsylvania cherry. And let's move on to this piece again in a window frame, an old window frame, and using the saw and special pebbles and lots of chunks of glass. In these flat pictures, you don't see the texture, but there's a lot of texture in each one, which was another freedom that I was able to accomplish when I moved away from the metal. This piece, called Plant Kindness, or Plant Kindness, however you accent that, frame within a frame, lots of color, another window frame. And one of my whimsical ones of a fish called Posh, I'm able to put some bubbles in there, crackle glass, and I use a lot of texture as well. Moving on to some of the others. In this one, you can see the iridescence in the sky. That will show very well with reflected light. The village has a lot of transparent and translucent glass. It'll have a whole different look at night when there's black behind it and no light coming through, but you have reflected light from the front. Cobalt and white are some of my favorite colors to work with. Simple but intensive. Again, this one has a lot of iridescence that I think you can see a little of it in the picture, but you'll see a lot more of it in its when it's hung.
So I was fascinated to hear Abby's process, and I don't think you mentioned so far that you use epoxy resin, I think, don't you, to set all this in, Abby? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a polyurethane glaze that I put over top. Either I paint it on, or you can put the resin or the product that you're using on the glass, and then I use the glass as a base and then put the smaller pieces on top. So then you can put the resin, so to speak, or the polyurethane there, and then put the glass pieces in, or affix the design you're going to do and then paint the glaze over it. And often it takes several coats of that, and it has to cure in between.
And you have to glue each piece down before you do that, you said, right?
I do. So the process is really, I tried to put a couple behind me so I can kind of talk about them, but the pieces are hand cut, as I said in that video, and some I cut on the saw. I use beach glass, chunks of glass, etc. But the ones that I cut on the saw or by hand, I have to grind those afterwards, so that they're not sharp edges. And when I grind them, I have to number those pieces, because as you see in this one, the orange flowers, to get them back in their rightful place, which is not always easy if I don't number them. So I put them back in the right place after grinding them, and then put my background in, and so on and so forth, and then put the glaze over top by painting it. So like I said, sometimes it takes several coats, but in almost all of my pieces, I have iridescence that you don't see during the day, but you do see at night with reflected light. But every picture has a day and a night view. Depending on the type of glass that I'm using, transparent or translucent. The translucent or the opaque glass will show up at night. The transparent will not, because you don't have light going through it. But it's interesting that you can have a whole different picture day and night, which is kind of interesting.
So it's constantly changing, whether you're viewing it with a light behind it, whether it's in front of a window or you have an artificial lighting behind it, which you can do, right? I think you said you can
Exactly.
Put some LED lights behind it to light it up.
Exactly. So as the light changes during the day, your picture changes as well. As long as you have light going through it. Sometimes people hang these on walls, which preclude the light going through. It's just the light from the front. So you won't have as much as a transition as you would with light going through from both sides. And they don't have to be hung in a window. They can be hung in a doorway or somewhere where at least there's light from both sides. And I think I mentioned in that video, or perhaps I didn't, I try to repurpose as much as I can. So the window frames are repurposed. The wooden window frames, I have an Amish gentleman who makes me some frames using repurposed German siding. So I never know what colors I'm going to get, but they're always very interesting. And the frames, sometimes the frame is the inspiration for the piece. Sometimes it's a piece of stained glass that just looks like this is a stormy sky and I've got to use it with a lighthouse. So there are many things that can inspire me as to what I'm going to work on. But when I decide to work on one, it's hours and days later that I finally get to see what it looks like. Even though I use a light box, I really don't know what it really is going to look like until I hold it up to the natural light and see what the finished piece is.
It's a pretty unique style. I haven't seen anyone. Do many other people use this process?
I have seen a couple of artists. I haven't really pursued that. I'm sort of well, I'm a self-trained artist, but I sort of drifted into this whole thing as an alternative to using the metal. And I have seen a few other artists doing similar things, let's say, but I really don't know if there's a big population of artists doing it.
Well, thank you, Abby. And Abby's at the Tatewell Gallery, and they're open pretty much every day. And Donna too had a question.
You just have to unmute yourself. There you
You're
go.
unmuted, Don.
Abby, thank you. It's so interesting. I have a couple of questions. First of all, where do you repurpose glass, or do you buy that glass for your process? And I wondered about where you get that. And secondly, I just wondered what skills prepared you for this kind of art? It's just spectacular.
Well, what prepared me probably was I'm a traditional rug hooker. So I dye wool to paint pictures with wool. If you're familiar with traditional rug hooking. So the colors that I try to complement in each one sort of come naturally, I guess, now. So that may have been my inspiration. I'm always doing something artistic anyway, so I do drift from one thing to another. And your first question was where again?
Your materials, your glass.
I do use recycled glass. there was a church that was torn down. They didn't take out the stained glass. It just all went into a pile. Years ago, my mother picked up the glass off the sidewalk from the stained glass windows. And so when I use that glass, I make a note on that piece that some of that glass came from this particular church. So I do recycle glass when I can get it. I use some beach glass. And then I do buy stained glass sheets. There are a couple of different manufacturers. Let me think that there are a couple. One is out near Pittsburgh. I'm in Pennsylvania. And there is, I can't think of the name of the.
So it's not repurposed. You do buy glass especially for your work.
I do. So when I see a particular piece, you know, that I say, oh, that would make fabulous stormy sky, or a fabulous bunch of lilies, or what have you. So that does inspire me for sure. But it's stained glass that I buy in sheets, and sometimes very large sheets. But there are manufacturers in one of the biggest manufacturers was out in the Seattle area, but they went out of business, sold out. It's tough to get.
It would be so interesting to watch you. We would, both Don and I think it would be just fascinating to see you actually work. We'd love to have an opportunity to see you work sometime. It just sounds fascinating. Thank you very much.
Sure. Thanks for asking the
It
question.
sounds to me, Abby, it sounds to me like there's a video in store for you.
Yes.
A video watching you create these.
I
I
agree. That would be fascinating.
That would be interesting to post on our website.
It would be.
Yeah, it's done in pieces. You know, it's the process takes time, and so it's, you know, I work on it a little bit at a time, an hour or two, sometimes 4 or 5 hours, sometimes 8 hours straight. But you know, it's a process over time. So doing a video, you know, I guess I'd have to just take clips, you know, of different stages.
Yeah, we can work together on that. All right, thank you, Abby. And now Paula is also at Tatewell Gallery, and she has been inspired by somebody else who's on this Zoom meeting, and we'll let her tell her story, but let me go to share screen, and we'll see a little bit about Paula.
Hi, I'm Paula Meinert, and these are assemblages that I have done. It's an interesting project, and I find it interesting for myself that I only started doing art within the last 5 or 6 years. It was all due to the inspiration and encouragement of a friend of mine, another artist, Lucy Mueller. And the assemblages, this particular group was inspired by an old book I found at a yard sale. And you can probably see the title. The title of the book was The Virtues and Defects of a Young Girl, published in 1890. And I also am a collector of old photographs, mostly 19th century. And so the photographs and the book came together in my mind. This one is the first one, called The Inspection, because the whole book is basically laying down rules for young girls. And each chapter has a characteristic. It's either a flaw or an asset. And it's quite interesting, but this one is meant to say they're listening, they're being spoken to when they're being lectured and so on, which was, of course, quite common back. This one is disobedience. That was a prime flaw in young girls in that era, and certainly in this book. And of course, wearing flashy jewelry probably went against the mores of the time, but this one is disobedience, which of course, back then was a flaw. Nowadays, perhaps not so much. This truthfulness, and is actually one of my favorite photos. I love the way she is there looking out saying, I'm going to speak the truth, whether you like it or not. And as you can see with all of these, I take found objects and add them to the cutting boards. What's that one called?
So all of your pieces are based on that book, and Lucy, I don't think we can see, yeah, there's Lucy waving to us. So Lucy was the one that inspired Paula to get into this work. And so any questions for Paula? Do you want to say anything else about, yeah.
Well, I have a question. You said that you create these with found objects and photographs. Are the photographs were yours, or the photographs you found to go to insert into a particular piece, or were they photographs you had that you connected?
The photographs are things I pick up at yard sales and flea markets. And what I will usually do is look through a bunch of photographs and think, now this particular series, I had the book, and I thought, all right, which of the pictures do I have? Will go in with the different traits that were mentioned in the book. I don't go looking for photos after I have an idea. I usually start with the photos.
And Gwen, you had a question, I think? You're muted, Gwen.
Yeah, Gwen, you just have to, there you go.
You're still muted.
If you move your mouse around, it'll, there she
There we
is.
go. Okay. You mentioned that you mounted your pieces on cutting boards. Is there any special significance to that?
Not really, except I think everything in these assemblages has to do with pieces of everyday life. You know, there are locks, there are keys, there are pieces of wood, there's fabric, and I use old cutting boards that I find, but so only in the sense that it's a good material to work with. Yeah. Although I have to be careful because I have discovered, for example, that bamboo cutting board, which is, I guess, would not be an especially old one, that doesn't work very well, you know, for drilling into it and things like that. So.
Right. Right. Oh, thank you.
Can I ask,
Lindsay.
I would just love to hear more from, you know, kind of the inspiration from Lucy. How that dynamic, I think I missed it a little bit.
Well, Lucy.
Wait, can we, we're hearing feedback.
Yeah, I got it.
Okay. Go ahead.
Well, I went over to Lucy's house one day and she said, we'll play. Do you know Louise Edelson, was it?
Nebelson.
Yeah, Nebelson, who works with wood, which I guess is why I started with wood. But yeah, that's how that started for me. Do you want to add anything, Lucy?
I would say that doing play dates with Paula is quite interesting because actually we just did it again today just for fun. It's the first time we've done it since COVID. But there is nothing that I contribute that's not Paula, because Paula has her own sense of composition. She knows what goes with things. She knows what looks good to her. She has a great sense of composition. as you can probably tell from the pieces. But one of the things that we both were inspired with is, I always find it kind of sad and, just a sad commentary to go to a tag sale and find photos and things that people are discarding. There's a person, a real person with a real life. And there's a photo. Sometimes Paula has pictures of her family from her Danish ancestors. And I'm hoping that she'll do more of these pieces with her own family and her own family artifacts. But I think there's something very, very special with her taking different pieces from different people who are not related, putting them into a whole composition that makes sense. And like with this one about the virtues and the flaws of women, I think a lot of Paula's work is about women's issues and women's ideas and concepts. But the idea of taking a photo of someone that she knows knows nothing about, and putting it into something, making meaning from different visual objects, I just think is fascinating. And I have nothing to do with it. Paula, it all comes from Paula. I can say, put this there, put that there. Nah, if it doesn't fit for her, it's absolutely, so I just be quiet and encourage her to do a unique thing, because it's really pretty amazing.
And good for you, Lucy, for inspiring somebody to get into the art world.
Yeah,
and find their
very
creative
useful.
extent. Okay, and last but not least, Peter Anderson is at the bank, and he's following his brother Hugo Anderson, who previously had a show there, and they both do huge abstract landscapes. And so I'll start by showing a little bit of his interview at the bank. And
Hi, I'm Peter Anderson. I'm here to show you and talk a little bit about some of the art that's on exhibit at the Bar Harbor Bank. I'll take you around. So I'm starting with a couple of different images. I'm trying to get this. This is actually something that I just have started doing, working with pastels on sandpaper. So it's pastel on sandpaper and then an abstract painting. This painting, and the reason I put these in is this particular one I did 30 years ago, and it's called Field Study 1. And I recently did a second one last year, which is a little bit different, but it's the same thing, both pastel on regular paper. This larger one I just did is a pastel and oil on a large piece of sandpaper, but it's you can buy it in large quantities and large rolls. So that's a larger one. This is a monotype, and it's got oil on it, so it's mixed media. I haven't been giving you the names. The name of this one is Night on Bald Mountain. The name of this one is Still Life. The name of this one is Northern Light. Another pastel on sandpaper. This is called A Very Hot Day. This has also got a little bit of cold wax and oil on the sandpaper. In this room, this piece is also sandpaper. This is gouache and pastel on sandpaper. This is a monotype with gouache and watercolor. This one is called Quarry. This is called Taos House. It's also a monoprint with oil and gouache. And the last one is called Green Acres. It is the same thing. It's pastel, watercolor, and gouache on paper. This is another sandpaper, pastel on sandpaper. This one is called Brand New Day. This is another, one of the only non-recent ones. This is about 25 years old. And this is called Still in Kansas. And I painted it in Canaan, New Hampshire 25 years ago. So here are, I do a number of very, very small things, and then I do very large things. So these are, this is pastel on paper. This is oil and gouache on paper. These are oil on paper and pastel on paper. This next group these are larger. This is 4 feet by 4 feet. The name of this painting is Devil's Backbone. I grew up in Colorado, and there's a rock formation near Loveland, Colorado called the Devil's Backbone, except that it's orange. And this turned out to be green. But it's
Okay, so I'm going to go back. Obviously, Peter's got a variety of techniques and materials and sizes that he uses. It's a great show, but I spent a couple times in his studio hearing more about his approach. So let's hear from him. Peter.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for waiting around. What struck me so far is the difference is
Oh, Peter is muted.
Peter, you got muted somehow.
Oh, I'm sorry. There you go.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Okay, great. So what I'm saying is that it's interesting that all of from Tatiana and everybody else who are realistic painters and artists, and I'm a non-representational and abstract painter, but what strikes me is that the whole process is really about solving problems. So the way I start is not with anything in particular in mind, although I tend to have, if you can see that this is a triptych that I did a long time ago that's 36 by 7, they're 36 across and 48 high. I start with some marks on a canvas, and then I try to solve the problem of where the harmony is, how the colors work together. So that's really, I came to art as one of the previous artists also said, hey, I didn't start painting until I was 40. And I also don't have any formal artistic training, and I've just done it with trial and error. I do things, I do a lot of pastels, as I mentioned. I traditionally did it on regular paper. Actually, I have a piece here. And one of my pieces said, you should paint on sandpaper. So this is a piece of sandpaper that is, I think it's about 600 grit, 500 grit. And it holds, the advantage of doing that is with traditional pastel, you have to use a spray fixative, a chemical fixative to hold the chalk onto the paper. It changes the color. You can't ever predict where it's going. With sandpaper, you can put 8, 9, 10 layers of chalk on top of each other, and it will hold because the tooth of the sandpaper will hold it. So I do pastels. 3 or 4 years ago, I went up to White River Junction to Two Rivers printmaking studio, and I started doing monotypes, which I find similar, but they're kind of the opposite, where you put ink on a plate, you run it through a press, and you get, as a monotype would make you believe, it's a one of a kind. So I do that. I do the pastels when I get stuck on large paintings, and I do, you just saw a couple of them. If you look at the rest of the video, there are a number of them. Sometimes it takes me a year before I finish it, and I'll stare at it for a year, and I'll say that color's not right, or I'll get, because they're large, I might get half of it that looks good, and I'm just not happy with it and hopefully eventually I don't don't completely ruin it before I finish it. So I would say I'm more of a painter and an abstract painter, and I think of the landscapes in terms of if you look out of an airplane window and look down, if you just say flying over Kansas or New Mexico or farmland, you see the squares and you see the patterns of that. That's kind of where I'm going. And the one thing that I was showing Rick, and I can change this a little bit. One thing that I've started to do is a kind of a combination of, you can see this picture back here is a mess. I painted 2 or 3 times. I painted over it. I made marks on it. So I took a photograph of it, and then I put that on my iPad, and then I colored it in and finished it on my iPad. And then I sent it off and had it printed, and there are 2 pieces in the show on archival paper, a giclée. And then I also, so to give you an idea, you can see these are both from that painting in back. So I did that part on an iPad and then printed it. And then this one, again, is very different colors. So it's I don't know what you would call the process, but it kind of starts with a real painting. It goes to a digital format, and then it comes back out and is repainted. And then Rick and I, he was just here the other day. So I've taken it a step further, and this piece actually is started from a painting, went to a digital photograph, did it on the iPad, printed it out, and then I put cold wax, which is something else I'm doing. So now I'm painting on top of the painting, and it's back to being in the real world in terms of being on paper. So what excites me is working on in multiple mediums. So pastels on paper, monotypes, oil on canvas. I must admit, I never did figure out how to manage acrylics. So I paint all in oil because I like the translucency of that. I like watercolor and gouache as well. So I do lots of things, but I think ultimately it's about color. I really like trying to match the color and working in kind of harmony and getting something that finally makes sense to me. Kind of like playing the piano. I play the piano, but I don't read music. So I just sit down and play. The painting is similar in that respect. So I start with really nothing in mind, and then it goes a certain direction. And some of the pieces at the bank, I give them names after the fact. I'll look at it when I'm done and I go, that reminds me of a place that I was in Ireland. So it's kind of backwards from realistic painting, but I think the process is very similar of all the artists we've talked about. You're trying different techniques, and ultimately it's solving a problem of how you want this to work and working with the materials you have. So I'd be happy to answer questions. This is my studio. I'm on Main Street behind Little Brother Burger. Stop by anytime and I'd be happy to show you what I'm working on and talk to you.
And I think that's fascinating. We've all been at that point where we have worked on a painting or something for quite a while, and then we just feel like we want to give up on it. But so to take it, what Peter did was to take an image of it, put it on the computer, and fool around with it, and don't give up on it. And he's found all sorts of ways to salvage that. I really enjoyed going around and talking to all the artists and finding out, learning out. Every artist has a story, and every artist has experimented with different techniques, and we can all learn from each other. So stop by Peter's studio sometime, and he's got all sorts of materials he's experimented with and techniques. Questions for Peter? Sue.
Peter, where is your studio again? Can you be more specific?
Yeah, you know where Art's back, the old art store was, and then it was the guitar store. I'm on the edge of that, so I'm down that little alley.
I see.
And I'm on the corner, so I'm in there's a little porch in front. And there's a sign in here that says Peter Anderson on the window. I think I think you've been here, actually.
You're not in the Grange then?
That's my brother, and we were both there. And I recently moved back here. I had more space here, but yeah, that's Hugo, who, as Rick said, had the show that was previous to mine at the bank. So.
That's your brother. Okay, thank you. We'll stop by.
Okay.
Well, I hope this has inspired you to go see the actual shows. They are all open. And also go on our website, Center for the Arts NH, and see the videos of each of the shows if you're not comfortable with going out in public yet. We've got a great variety of artists, and I encourage you to talk to the artists and find out more about them. You never would have known in looking at Abby's work how much work, when you talk to her, how much work goes into it and how each piece has to be glued on there and embedded, and there's so much more depth to a piece once you find out about it. So I thank you for joining us tonight, and I'll hand it over to Jean.
Well, I just want to also thank everybody for being here tonight. I find the processes that these artists go through is amazing. And as Rick said, they all have a different way of approaching their art in different medium, and just the the length of time it takes, and the actual physical process of doing these beautiful pieces. And I love the shows that are up because they are so varied. Rick, thank you for coordinating these exhibits, because this is a wonderful show. I wish we could all be there live tonight to speak to the artists, but please, as Rick suggested, stop in their studios, watch the videos on the website, and do go to the micro galleries and see the art in person. There's nothing like actually, viewing the artwork in real time, in real life. So again, thank you all for coming. And we hope to see you at one of our events soon, if it's possible. And if not, we'll see you at the next first Friday in October. Thank you all.
Free wine once we get open again.
Yes.
Good night.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.